Leading off starts right now on Fantasy Pros, brought to you by BetMGM. I am your host today, Chris Welsh, brought with Andrew Seifter. Man, Andrew, I was looking forward to this week. I've had a stuttery stutter for the last couple shows, and then right out the gates, I'm like, and brought to you by Andrew Seifter. No,
happy to bring you on,
Andrew
even though it's your show.
Well, how apropos to the weekend of losing it, except I lost it right here, not losing it in the ninth, not losing it right on like Friday at like 5 minutes in. Perfect game gone, like Jim said, it just right out the gates. We're not going to screw it up. Andrew Seifter and myself going to be talking about all the baseball, like the missed opportunity for me for the week, and Drew Rasmussen for a perfect game, who came within 2 outs of a perfect game. The internet, too, by the way, was very slick this go around. I feel like off of the last perfect game no hitter, and instead of like, we got a perfect game, but everyone was doing their little like shenanigans online, like, hey, you might want to tune in. Something's going on over here. The minute I tuned in, bam, it was gone. Drew Rasmussen, 2 outs of a perfect game, and he went in, Andrew, into the ninth, I believe, on a 79 pitch count. Just absolutely phenomenal. Rasmussen was so good at the beginning of the year, really tailed off. Is it sad for you to watch these perfect games go by? Or are you kind of like, I don't know, are you an anarchist and you kind of just like, I'm here to watch these go away?
I mean, I don't do the Schadenfreude thing, so no, I'm not happy to see him lose it. I do think, I guess it was Bob Nightingale that broke that little rule you were talking about, and he did actually mention it on Twitter. So there's always going to be somebody that will in this age of social media, and there's no secrets left. But I like Rasmussen. You look at his overall numbers for the season, and they're actually almost identical to what he did last season. So he has his ups and downs. His peripherals are always much worse than his surface stats. But maybe he's just one of those guys that the advanced stats don't fully capture. I mean, it's a little early to say that. I guess it's really only been 2 seasons, but I don't know. I don't mind riding Drew Rasmussen.
I don't either. Almost 100 innings under his belt, under a 3 ERA. XFIP is nothing crazy, 3.5. So it's not like there's a major swing in the wrong direction. Strikeouts have been a little bit low, and they were a little bit low in this one, but he was completely efficient. This stat was wild to me. Wonky actually just brought something up in the chat that it's been 10 years to the day since the last perfect game. Well, ESPN and MLB Metrics both shared this stat that since the last perfect game, there have been 9 pitchers to take it to the ninth and lose it. 9 pitchers since the last one have gone to the ninth and lose a perfect game in the ninth. That's a wild stat. Do you want to, Andrew, did you click on the tweet at all?
No, I didn't.
Up to it. Okay. You want to take a guess at any of those names that were the 9 that have lost it in the ninth since Felix Hernandez's perfect game in 2012?
Gosh, it's so hard for me to remember.
So obviously you got Drew.
Scherzer.
Scherzer is one in 2015. Nailed that with the Nationals.
Oh, I got to keep going. How about Verlander?
I think you want to name one. You're right.
Yeah.
I did your job. All right. I will start off 2013. Let's see if the chat, you guys could be looking at this. I don't know if anyone's putting in there, but 2013, Yu Darvish with the Rangers. Yusmeiro Petit with the Giants against the Arizona Diamondbacks. Then you had Scherzer, Rich Hill in 2017 with the Dodgers at Pittsburgh, Jorge Lopez, how funny is that now, with the Royals at Minnesota, and now he's there. Tampa Bay in 2019 lost the combined at Baltimore. Mike Leake, maybe the best name on this entire one, against the Angels. And the last one before Rasmussen was last year, Carlos Rodon at Cleveland. 9 pitchers who lost their perfect game in the ninth since the last perfect game.
Seems like that stat shows us there's no correlation. You could be one of the best pitchers of all time, or you could be a nobody and you could have close to a perfect game. So I don't know what that says about Drew Rasmussen. Really nothing, I guess.
The problem with like no hitters and perfect games too is it is a smorgasbord of like guys. You look over here and you're like, here's Dallas Braden, and then over here, here's Justin Verlander. You have like the best and the worst. Not calling Dallas Braden the worst, but I mean Mike Leake I might be willing to call the worst. Like this list, like you said, Yusmeiro Petit and Mike Leake on the same list as like Yu Darvish, Max Scherzer. That is,
it's also interesting. I feel like there's more no hitters now than ever before, but fewer perfect games, maybe because it's like with all the strikeouts, it's easier to avoid giving up hits, but maybe the walk rates are up some. So it's interesting how that dynamic sort of shifted over time.
Yeah, and I've always had the correlation to the hitting side where the cycle is to the no hitter as the 4 home run game is to the perfect game. Like those have always been those correlations, because I feel like we've seen cycles, I guess, have tapered down a little bit, but we've had some runs. When cycles happen, I feel like they just like up. We get like a whole bunch of them. But I would have loved it. I love the perfect game. It's such a unicorn of a thing to happen, and we almost had it, but it was lost in the 9th. Just like me playing on MLB The Show against Bogman. I had a no-hitter going in our first game for months last week. We were streaming, and I lost it in the 9th inning, of course, because that's how that goes. I know, shame. Brady Singer ends the Dodgers' 12-game winning streak, and Brady Singer has been quite the dude since all of us have wanted him to not be the dude. And on the year, he's got an over 9K per 9. He's crossed over the 100 innings pitch marker. 3.29 ERA with a very impressive 3.35 FIP. Home runs have kept in check. Really, everything you look at are the underlinings of, I don't want to call it an elite pitcher, but like a top flight pitcher. How trustworthy are you with Brady Singer through the rest of the season? Like, I know, like, back and forth, like Nick Pollock has been a little bit questionable on him, but you go and look at the stuff and the results. Like, how much trustworthiness do you have in Singer through the end of this year?
I'm feeling good about him right now. I mean, how can you not after doing that against the Dodgers? Of course, in this 12-team league, I'm in my home league. People haven't really given much respect to Singer because he's been on the waiver wire more often than not. I picked him up for the one bad start he had in that stretch and then cut him again. And now I picked him up again. He's a 2-pitch pitcher. So I think that always gives you a little bit of cause for concern with the starter. But he's making it work, especially with his slider. It's really effective pitch right now for him. He's got some really juicy matchups coming up here as well. So I'm absolutely going to ride the hot hand with Brady Singer right now.
In June, he had a 5.97 ERA. In the month of July and August, he has had a sub 2.5 whip. He had a 2.05 whip ERA in July and a 2.33 ERA in August. So he went from a first half of a 4 ERA where he gave up 11 homers. A little bit short of a sample size here. 11 homers, throwing to a 2.62 batting average. In the second half, a 1.67 ERA, giving up only 2 homers. Walks have cooled a little bit, and the batting average under 200. He has dominated hitters on this second half of the year and looks really, really good. And this is a little bit more telling of ESPN, but his ownership in ESPN is only 57%. But I mentioned this on a couple ITL shows. You can tell like ESPN's so wonked because there's so many people who have just given up and not playing. The major guys that are on a pickup list every single week, then both of them like don't even move over 60% because there's so many people. It doesn't matter what the percentages look like over there. There's so many dead leagues and just dead ownership across the board that it doesn't move the table quite enough. Or actually, you know what? That was Yahoo, and ESPN's the same thing. It's even be lower, but Yahoo only 57% for some of the same reasons.
That's what I was going to say. I was going to say it's 57% in Yahoo. I think maybe it's just the Royals too. I feel like there's certain teams that just haven't had a lot of great pitchers over the years, and people just sort of start giving up on certain franchises and having biases towards, franchises that are always pumping out top pitchers. I think we've seen this maybe with the Orioles as well. People don't want to ever trust Orioles pitchers just because of past history, but we got to look at the numbers. And I think that what you brought up about Singer's walk rate is really important. I mean, that's way down from last season. It's barely over 2 walks per 9 right now, which is a much more manageable rate for him. So I like what he's doing, and don't hold that Royals affiliation against him.
It's something to think about. Like, it'll probably be something down the line. It's impossible to engage from this guy, but you really got to wonder, like, what maybe rubbed off from Zach Greinke. Hopefully the good stuff and not the bad stuff. But, Greinke goes in the Diamondbacks and they got Zach Gallen, and Zach Gallen kind of even retransformed who he was. Same thing is happening here. I don't know if there's a direct correlation, but you have like those veteran pitchers that if you want to talk about a guy that understands pitching, that's Zach Greinke, and really may have rubbed off in a positive way. A couple of the headline notes here. Dustin May recorded 10 strikeouts over 5 innings on Sunday in his last minor league rehab start in AAA. He also tossed an immaculate inning, which is crazy. He needed just 70 pitches in those 5 innings. And this is coming back from Tommy John. He is slated to return to the Dodgers rotation on Saturday against the Marlins. Are you a full trust Dustin May guy? Put him in, no worries. We don't really have a gauge of like how far they'll push him. They pushed him 70 in his last. I could see him going 75 to 80 in his first start if they're pushing him like that in AAA. But Andrew, what's your trust level on Dustin May for this weekend?
I'm happy to just plug him right into my lineup. I don't know what we're going to get for the entire season. I think that's a little more unclear, but I feel like when he's starting, you just go with it. I mean, it was only 5 starts last year, but he took this massive step forward last year in the swinging strike rate, the K per 9. He just looked like the dominant pitcher that he was supposed to be in the first place. And he's looked like that dominant pitcher as well in his rehab outings. So, he looks like he could step right in and just miss a ton of bats. And you love the Dodgers situation. I mean, if you're hunting for wins, it's always a good place. It's a team with a great track record with pitchers. I mean, we're seeing guys like, Tyler Anderson, Tony Gonsolin, you name it. These guys are all coming in and they are awesome fantasy options. So I would love to just have Dustin May on my roster and in my lineup.
One thing I'm going to be really monitoring too is how they treat the innings of all 3 of those guys you just said. Obviously May, but throwing in Gonsolin and Tyler Anderson, just because you got to wonder if you get into September, if they start to screw around and maybe try to piggyback. That's always been the big worry for me, is if they tried any type of piggyback to lower the innings on any of these guys. There's no really signs yet. Maybe it's just going to be a 6-man rotation is something they would consider over piggybacking, but just keep an eye on it. And, coming off of Tommy John's always a little scary, but Dustin May's arsenal, that like 2-seamy, just flipping fastball is just I think it's one of the best pitches in baseball. If you, especially for fastball usage, it's absolutely absurd to me. And if his command is there, he's going to put up some really good results early on. Last on the big headlines, Jeff Passan over the weekend reported that the Nationals are finally going to promote CJ Abrams from AAA. For whatever reason, they sent him down there to, get a better look at Cesar Hernandez. But Luis Garcia is going on the injured list. And in a short period of time, I believe it was 8 games over in AAA, Abrams was hitting 290 and had 4 stolen bases. No real big power. I think he had 2 doubles, I think 11 hits. So not, only 2 extra base hits of any variety. But the stolen bases were there. He got to get acclimated a little bit, and he's going to come up. And he's just one of those guys, maybe not in a points league because he's not showing off like really impressive anything power whatsoever. But any type of category or roto, CJ Abrams is a must attempt pickup in my eyes if he can finish out the year. What say you on Abrams?
Yeah, and he did hit 7 homers in 30 AAA games with the Padres at the beginning of the year. So there is still some power potential there, I think, as well. And, oftentimes with these prospects, it's enough pressure having to come up to the big leagues. But when you're coming up to a title contending team and a team where there's a lot of competition for playing time, I think that just really adds extra pressure. And I think CJ Abrams is a player that might benefit now from being out of the spotlight, just getting to play every day without a lot of huge expectations on him. So because the physical tools, the hit tool, it's all there. We've seen it in the minors. And I think he could put it together this year. I mean, you never know with rookies, but I like the situation being out of the spotlight of San Diego.
And he's aggressive on the base paths too. I remember I was at his first major league game this year. It was against the Diamondbacks, and he was like first plate appearance. I don't remember if he got on by line out or whatever it was. He just got on first, and he immediately went to steal on the first one. So I mean, he has been hyper aggressive on stolen bases. He has next level. It used to be the Buxton power. How I've referred to the minor league speed, the Buxton speed, I've referred it to as the Abrams speed, because the guy flies. He does have power when he's really seeing the ball well. It's been a little crazy over the last couple years in his adjustment period. But Abrams is a guy, if you're trying to get stolen bases with a decent hit tool, you should pick him up. I don't know if they'll put him high in the lineup. I doubt they will early on, but there's always that possibility. So be on the lookout for that. Some injuries. Travis d'Arnaud should return tonight versus the Mets. Dustin May, as we talked about, had that rehab stint. Ketel Marte is considered day-to-day with some hamstring tightness, and Ramon Laureano left Sunday's game with left side soreness. We speculate. Wonder if Ketel maybe get a little bit banged up. Maybe they consider putting him on the IL, and maybe they say, hey, you know what? Bring up that Corbin Carroll. Let's just bring him up. We'll slide someone over at second. We get another body in there. Just be on the lookout for that. Here's a fun fact for this day in baseball, Wonky put on here. In 1955, pitcher Warren Spahn of the Milwaukee Brewers hit a home run off of Mel Wright of the St. Louis Cardinals to give Spahn a home run in every National League park in 1955. That seems like what is that? I would love to know, what does that look like right now as far as like guys hitting? They're making a bigger deal about this stat when, it was the AL versus the NL and they were all these separate league type of things. I use air quotes, but like, I would kind of love to see an active player board of hitting homers in separate leagues, or maybe even more so, how many active players do you think have hit a home run in every ballpark in Major League Baseball? There's got to be some, right? Or do you think it's low, like to none?
Well, I think that, the real part of that stat was that he's a pitcher, right? And it was Milwaukee Braves back then, actually. But yeah, I don't know how many. I would assume some of these guys that have been in, playing for 20 years or something like that, like maybe like a Nelson Cruz or someone like that.
Like Pujols, Cruz.
Yeah, Pujols. Yeah, exactly. Some of those guys maybe. But, I think back then in the 50s, there wasn't as much specialization. So the pitchers had to, know how to work the bat a little bit, maybe more than they do now. Now I think with these high school kids, even you're seeing, a lot of the times the pitchers are the best player on the team in a high school team. They're the best hitter and the best pitcher, but then they get into the minor league system and they stop ever focusing on the hitting aspect at all. So by the time they get up to the big leagues, they're not much of a hitter anymore. But I think back then that was not something that happened. So maybe you saw some pitchers that could swing the bat a little bit.
I wasn't even like processing that when I was saying that. Wonky's 100% right. That's an even more interesting stat. Also, on what you were just saying, I want to talk about two-way players, just throwing it out there for everybody. Brendan McKay with the Rays just did a little rehab start the other day. So I don't know if he's coming back. Be very interesting to see if the Rays continue looking at him as a two-way player because of all of the injuries. Here's a little deep dive. We don't have to go too crazy into it, but we haven't done this. This is something Joe and I did a whole lot. And this was more so because of one of these races moving across. I went and took a look at all of the future MLB futures for awards and bets. And there is still one bet on here that I think you can take. But almost every other bet, probably no shocker, it's mid-August, you should see it like this, but there are no tight races but one. And the furthest race, this is actually probably shocker number 2, the furthest race of any of these is the AL MVP. Aaron Judge has moved to minus 650, 6.5 on the favorite, and Ohtani is now a plus 450. Andrew, Joe and I have been very, very heavy about what Ohtani had been doing midseason as a two-way player. I think it's still hard to not give that to him, but my God, the books have moved. There is no bigger deficit or favorite, if you will, on any of these but the AL MVP race.
Yeah, this is just one of those things where it's like, really, if Ohtani keeps doing this, like he should be the MVP every year. Like you can't really compare the value. But I know, like Judge is having a truly special season, and he could challenge the home run record even. And the Yankees are a great team, and this is a career season, I think, for Aaron Judge. So I understand wanting to recognize that. So, the MVP is not, it's not a statistical competition. It's judged by people who have biases and, make up their own minds about these things. So we hear this all the time about how much it matters, how good the team is, how valuable can you be if your team's not that good and things like that. But so, yeah, I understand why the betting is in favor of Judge, but I do think that if you want to just talk about who is the most valuable player, it has to be Ohtani.
Yeah, and like Wonky brings up this point saying, don't you throw $10 on Ohtani at this point? Sure. But I said this a long, long time ago that I felt like, and this is like a commonplace that'll happen with like writers and stuff, is there'll be a point where it's like they give it to somebody and they're going to look at themselves in the mirror and go, we can't give this guy this award every single year. So they're literally going to give him a strike because he's so amazing. And it's like, well, now you got to do something more amazing for us. And that could be something that leads to Ohtani not winning this, is if it's literally just like, yeah, this is great and all, but like, look at this guy. He did this really cool thing. This is different from who he was. When you're right, at the end of the day, it probably should be Ohtani. This will be an Ohtani award. It's a really fascinating number, and I don't disagree with Wonky. Throw it on there. But the problem has been is Judge has never cooled down this whole season. We've had little, ups and downs ebbs and flows with Ohtani, and I think that's hurting the odds on a daily basis. But why not make the bet?
It's kind of like the Oscars, like in the Oscars, they always want to give an actor the award when they think it's like the one chance they have left to give it to them or something like that. This is the chance to give it to Judge. Ohtani, they know there's going to be more chances in the future to give it to him, or at least they think there are. So I think that could be working against him
too. They're more of a disaster than they've been in kind of a long time, especially with losing Trout. So that might be part of it. There's some other races that look, I think they're kind of locked. Goldie in the NL is minus 140. Riley is plus 350. That one, I guess it could be open. That one feels a lot more locked. You've got the AL awards. Very interesting. Verlander minus 155. Cease is plus 200. McClanahan is 600. I still think Verlander is still kind of a walk on that. Sandy Alcantara is a huge push over on the NL side. He's minus 280. And then when you go over to the rookie awards, the number 2 biggest deficit is Julio. And I was actually a little bit surprised at this, not because Julio's been incredible, but I just thought with some of the missed time, Witt could have gained a little bit of ground. No, it's gotten worse. It is minus 600, 6-1 on your money for Julio in the opposite direction. Minus 600. Witt is 10-1 for your money, plus 1,000. That's a huge deficit. But the one bet I think you can make is the NL Rookie of the Year award. Spencer Strider currently has a lead. He's actually pitching today. He's incredible. Minus 115, but his teammate, Michael Harris, is plus 115. The thing you do have to worry about is them monopolizing each other and eating themselves both up. But I thought I was going to look at this and I was going to see Michael Harris as a leader with Strider right behind. This is a bet, though I'm not getting a lot of good money. I think it's the only bet that I could make, I feel like, with any chance whatsoever that is not the favorite, Andrew.
Yeah, I mean, I actually do like Michael Harris in that competition, but it is real close. I mean, when guys are, on the same team, it's kind of makes it more complicated, I guess. But yeah, I mean, with Witt, I sort of get it just because the Royals aren't competitive, and the Mariners are surprising some people by being in the pennant race, being in the playoff chase. So I think that's working in Julio's favor for sure. But Alcantara too. I get it, but at the same time, like, why do we think he's such a lock for that award? I mean, like, there are other good pitchers in the National League who are on winning teams. I mean, like,
Corbin Burns is plus 800. He is 8-1. Look at that deficit. 280 to plus 800 is the deficit between Alcantara and the number 2 better.
What if Scherzer just dominates the rest of the season? Could he get in that race?
I don't think so. I think Sandy has been too dominant with how far he's gone into games. I mean, maybe the numbers don't look like astronomical as far as like strikeouts and stuff, but he has been he's been the most valuable player of all of that. And I think it's a very like textbooky type of bet that I think like purists would do. I get what you're saying. I totally get what you're saying, because it's like, if you had 6 weeks of one of these guys, 6 weeks of Joe Musgrove taking the team on his back, or, even Corbin Burns or Scherzer, like you said, you could do it. But I think it's too much ground to push. Like, I'm looking here. Scherzer is 40-1 if you wanted to make that bet. But that is so much ground and time. But he had time lost on the year. I think it's a lost cause. I think anything... Maybe you place a bet on like FanDuel or something so you can cash out if you're getting close. But I think this is an Alcantara run away with it. So I'm taking Michael.
I guess I just don't really understand it, because I mean, the Marlins are not a good team. It's not a major media market, really. I don't really get why he's such an overwhelming favorite, I guess. I mean, he's a great pitcher, don't get me wrong.
You get 40-1 if you want to bet Scherzer right now. That's pretty good.
All right.
If you want to make that bet. So here's some stats. Drew Rasmussen, as we talked about, went 8 1/3, did give up that earned run, a hit, 7 strikeouts in his almost perfect bid. Michael Wacha struck out 9 over 7, only giving up 2 hits for Boston. Blake Snell, a 10 strikeout game over 6. Bryce Elder struck out 10 and 7 for Atlanta. And Brady Singer struck out 7 over 6, giving up only 1 hit, but did walk 3. We talked about the walk rate. It was a little bit in that game. Over on the hitter side, Brian Reynolds at a homer with a 5 RBI game this weekend. Christian Walker hit a bomb, and he actually had other hits, which is incredible. 4 for 5. That's not something he does. Albert Pujols had 2 homers in his... Do you think Albert Pujols legitimately could get to that 700 marker? I think he's 11 away in 6. Do you think like do you see a miracle of baseball where he gets to 700, or is he going to just have one of those... To me, it's super depressing when a guy ends something so close. Like, if I were at 698... I would have to play for another month next year to get to 700. Maybe it's an OCD thing, but you think you can get to 7?
Well, the tricky thing is, a lot of it I think comes down to how much playing time he gets, really, and the problem is that the Cardinals need to win games, so they're not going to be in a situation at the end of the year, I don't think, where they can be like, oh, let's just play Albert Pujols every day for 2 weeks so he can get there. Like they're not going to be able to make that sort of decision. They have to decide what lineup gives them the best chance of winning each and every day. So I would lean against it just for that reason, but it will be a sad trombone if he finishes a couple homers short.
Totally agree. I hate that stuff. And they're not going to count. They don't count the playoff run to it because they could have like 698, then go into the playoffs, hit a couple, and then we could all just like be like, well, you hit 700.
Do we get a month of Pujols next season then?
Yeah, that's what I would do. But he seems like he's done.
Yeah.
I just wouldn't be able to help myself. Ahmed Rosario, my guy, Ahmed Rosario, homer and stolen base combo meal, looking very, very good. 8 homers, 11 stolen bases on the year with a 288 batting average and a very low strikeout rate, 64 runs as well, pushing to maybe that 90, maybe even 100 if things go well on the back half. Vinny Pasquantino had a homer, Alex Bregman a homer, Pollock, Buxton combo meal, Thairo Estrada had a combo meal, and Rafael Devers homer going 2 for 4. Some stat zeros: Ryan Feltner 6 earned runs in 4 1/3. Justin Dunn gave up 5 earned runs and 7 hits, walked a couple, didn't get to the 4th. Kevin Gausman 4 2/3, 5 earned runs, give up 9 hits. A couple Thompson, Zach and Keegan, 5 earned runs, 4 earned runs, respectively. Kevin Gausman, Andrew, like a little bit of a taper off. Like I know we all want to talk about the Shane McClanahan taper off, but Gausman's been a little bit wonky on this second half.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I'm a big Kevin Gausman Kool-Aid drinker, so that is frustrating. But I mean, look at his peripherals, though, still. I mean, he's got a 10.45 K per 9, which is virtually identical to last season with the Giants. But the walk rate is the best of his entire career. It's 1.54 walks per 9. He's not giving up home runs either. I mean, he's on pace to shatter his best home run allowed number. So it's kind of like hard to understand a little bit why he's struggling. I mean, is it just maybe a BABIP thing? I mean, his underlying numbers are still very good. So I don't know. I take it from a hopelessly biased Kevin Gausman cheerleader, but I'm not. I still would be buying Kevin Gausman.
Gausman in the second half, a 4.13 ERA compared to his 2.87 first half ERA. Not as
disappointing for sure.
Disappointing right there. On the zeros for the hitters, Willie Castro, 4 strikeouts. Oneil Cruz, 4 strikeouts. Would you look at that? Matt Verling, 4 strikeouts. Birdie, Chapman, Judge, and Cedric Mullins, all 0 with 3 strikeouts. So no bueno.
Drop them.
Yeah, drop them all. Yeah, drop every single one of them. Drop that Judge, drop that Mullins, get him out of there. Yeah. The home run contest, friends, is getting very, very tricky because we have a tie. Hi Cubby and D Blum are tied at 42. None of them hit homers, it looks like, this weekend, or maybe one of them did. Goldie, Juan Soto. Maybe this red is for yesterday. Yeah, that's for the 8-14. So yesterday, no, they didn't have it. Terry, Mayer, and Go Cards all at 40, and then the list kind of tapers down. I did not hit a Julio one, unfortunately, for this weekend, so I didn't play any catch-up. Jumping over to a couple bets. Are you guys able to hear me as well, too? I see like a little weird internet marker, so making sure. Am I still good, Andrew?
Sounds fine to me.
Okay, sweet. Awesome. I see these little like StreamYard markers that tell me like your internet's unstable, but then my internet is totally fine. So, always fun. Always fun. On the bets, I've pulled the number 1 on the total base and strikeouts, and then the number 1 positive. So the number 1 total base bet, according to Betting Pros MLB prop cheat sheet algorithm, is Matt Chapman today, because he's at a total base marker of 1. You just have to get 1 total base today, but it is juiced to -175. So that might be dicey. The number 1 plus money bet is Teoscar Hernandez over at Rivers Casino. Apparently they've got on here at +112 for 1.5 total bases. So those are your total base markers. Spencer Strider, your number 1 algorithm strikeout guy. It's juiced at 165 but you only got to get 6. That is on BetMGM. And the number one plus money is Freddie Peralta on DraftKings against the Dodgers, and it's plus money at 110 at 5.5. So if you had to pick one, Andrew, which one of these bets are you picking? Understanding the juice.
I mean, I like that Peralta bet. I mean, he's got tons of strikeout potential, and that's a pretty low number. So, I mean, he is facing the Dodgers, so that makes it a little tougher. But I don't think that necessarily prevents him from getting the case. So I'd take that one.
Well, if you want to do it, go over to BetMGM. I think that one was DraftKings, but you can do and make it over at BetMGM and use our promo code Leading Off. You get a $1,000 risk-free bet if you do it today. Download the app, go on the website, BetMGM. $1,000 risk-free bet. Use the promo code Leading Off. Home runs. Andrew, let's get it. Let's get a home run call. What do you got for the beginning of this week?
I'm going to go with Matt Olson. He's facing Carlos Carrasco. He's a decent pitcher, but Olson is hitting .455 career off him with 2 homers and 2 doubles in 11 at-bats. So, and of course, Olson also has 3 homers in his last 3 games, so he's swinging a hot bat right now. We know the kind of power he brings to the table each and every day. So going with Matt Olson.
I didn't realize Wonky and I are going the same direction. We're both going with Rhys Hoskins up against a lefty. Implied run totals, I think, are very nice over there. The top 5 run implied total teams for today are Toronto, Cleveland, and Philly. And we're both going with Rhys Hoskins. Mike Mayer is going with the BVP play of G-Man Choi. And of course, our boy Joe Pisapia just has Judge in perpetuity. That is it. Andrew Seifter on Twitter at Andrew_Seifter. I am on Twitter at IsItTheWelsh. We gave up the no-hitter just right out of the gates. We had a little bit. This is like I know this is a quality start matchup. If we are doing the matchup on my performances here, internet a little bit wonky, a little bit of screws ups. So I think we're at like a 5 2/3, 4 runs. If you guys are scoring my hosting today, everybody. But Andrew, you hit it out of the park. You nailed it again, my friend. Anything going on people need to know about?
Sure, yeah. So I'm writing my weekly Fantasy Pros waiver wire article. The most recent one just came out on Saturday, so it's still pretty fresh. You can hear my love for Vaughn Grissom there. I'm also updating my rest of season fantasy baseball rankings tonight, as well as football rankings if you're into that kind of thing. So those are over at rosrankings.com. You can hear my podcast, the rest of season rankings fantasy podcast, on Apple or Spotify. We do two pods a week. We're going to be looking at football a lot here coming up, but we'll be doing some baseball pods here and there as well.
Great stuff. Find me over at In This League, inthisleague.com, and our twitch.tv/InThisLeague later today doing a live stream. Friends, that is it for Leading Off. We'll be back again tomorrow. We love you all. Goodbye, my friends. Go hit some homers.